All right, BWSI. What is BWSI? One more time. What is BWSI? That's what I want to hear. Excellent. Welcome, 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 everyone. Sorry to paraphrase Jimmy Fallon there, but it's good to see everybody here for the last week of the program. One more week. Well, you guys can figure out the math, do the math to the final event. I think everybody's working hard in their teams. Hope everybody's in the zone working on their final projects. I'm really looking forward to seeing what things that come together as we put together the little crises to make sure you guys have the parts and everything that you need for the final event, and supplies. That's my excitement for the week, is making sure everything's in place for that. Along with Lisa and Sigrid, there's a lot of logistics to make that final event happen. So we're really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are too. So I'm really happy here to be doing the introductions for the You Belong in STEM panel. It is super that we have this opportunity to do this. We have a great collection of both leaders at Lincoln Laboratory, people from the HR department, all the way down to BWSI alumni that are currently in college and high school. It is great that we've got this wide range because it really is important to emphasize why you guys are all here, right? Why do you belong in STEM? It's because you guys make a difference. And I want to keep emphasizing that. You're making a difference, you're making an impact, and are going to make an impact in the world. So it's really super that we have this discussion, and I'm hoping that some of the questions that have been submitted help this panelists along in this discussion. So it'll be interesting as we figure out how exactly we're going to do the discussion. As people are posting questions in chat, we'll be passing around the microphone here in person, and hopefully everybody will get a chance to have their voice heard. So, right, Sigrid, anything I'm missing? All right. So I want to do a quick introduction for all our panelists, and then I'm going to have Cherise come up for a second and introduce herself. Our moderator today is Haley Wahl. She's got a PhD in astrophysics, but also works at Lincoln Laboratory. It's going to be great to hear her as a professional at Lincoln Laboratory and what she's working on, right? David Pierre is Associate Program Manager at Lincoln Laboratory as well, really making things happen at Lincoln. Allison Chang, I've known Allison Chang for a few years as an associate leader of the Transportation and Safety Resilience Group at Lincoln, really making a difference on projects at Lincoln and in the nation as well. Allister is an assistant staff member at Lincoln in the Homeland Protection Group, a group that I used to be in, working again here in data analysis, geospatial modeling, and I'm hoping that he'll get us a chance to talk a little bit about his work. And then we have our alumni. Stephanie Shen is a rising high school senior, participated in the last year's Basics of ASICS course. It's great to see what she's coming back with from a perspective. And of course, we have Maggie McLeod, who's now in college at Purdue, talking about her experiences that she took from BWSI, carrying forward into her college career. So, Cherise, would you like to come up and introduce yourself briefly?
Hello. Can you all hear me? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cherise Beckford. I am here from MIT Lincoln Laboratory. I'm in the HR department, and I am the talent experience specialist over there. Basically, I represent the lab in a sense where we are the connective tissue, right? The person in HR that will do the outreach, the person in HR that will make sure that opportunities like this are weaved to audiences like you. So happy to be here today, and we have a great panel of colleagues that will talk to you from a reflective standpoint, based on where they were when they were in your shoes, and what the experiences have taught them and brought them to this point. So I hope you, are fulfilled by the conversations that we have today, and just continue to enjoy your experience. So with that, I will pass it over to Haley that will moderate this event. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to today's keynote. We're excited to dive into the unique journeys, insights, and lessons from these incredible leaders in STEM. Whether you're exploring your own STEM path or supporting each other's, you'll hear stories that inform, inspire, and empower. Let's start by discovering how each panelist's journey began. Panelists, I'll call on you one by one. Can you take us back to where you grew up and share memories, people, and/or key moments that helped you discover your passion in a specific field? Allison, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do that. Thanks, Haley. Yeah, and hey guys, it's nice to meet you all, and I hope you've been enjoying your time this summer so far. So I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in New York, but moved to New Jersey fairly early on, and that's where I stayed like through high school. I would say in terms of a STEM journey, I think for me it was like fairly clear by high school that I leaned towards STEM. You know, it wasn't that I was like terrible at the humanities, but it just wasn't, it didn't really come very naturally to me. And so, you know, by the time I finished high school, I did have a sense that in college, I would want to go into some sort of like science or engineering kind of a field. And then, you know, I ended up I was at Brown University, and some of you may know, like they had this very open curriculum and encouragement of like, you know, learning lots of different things. And I was able to kind of hold off on declaring a major until my sophomore year. And I think during my first couple of years, I just sort of decided that applied math was what I ended up wanting to major in. Mostly actually also to keep it kind of open, you know, because I think even though I had decided that like STEM was something I was very interested in, I didn't exactly know kind of there was a more specific kind of science. And I felt that applied math was something that actually, you know, you can have math in all the different sciences. And I felt that it could actually like help keep the door a little bit still open for me. I discovered in my junior year of college a topic called operations research. And to this day, I still actually feel like it's kind of not the best named field, in that like it's hard to sort of like know what operations research is until you actually study it. But it is a part of applied math. And I was actually in Australia. I was studying abroad for a semester when I took my first operations research class, and I just found it this like really fun kind of form of modeling, and it motivated me to want to learn more. And so I ended up in grad school studying operations research, actually at MIT, and it was a great experience. Yeah, so that's how I ended up sort of like in that field. Okay, back to you, Haley.
Great, thanks so much. Maggie, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Maggie. I'm a rising sophomore at Purdue University studying aerospace engineering. And I completed BeaverWorks in summer of 23. I was part of the Build a CubeSat course. I don't know if that's still a thing, but if it is, go CubeSat. It was great. But yeah, I'm really glad I did BeaverWorks. I've known I would study STEM pretty much my whole life. I've been hoping to do something space related pretty much forever. I was that kid who would wake up at 3 a.m. and watch the rocket launch happen. I was just always very interested in that side of things. Initially, I thought I would go into a science field. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, maybe planetary science, maybe physics. Then I did BeaverWorks, and engineering was the thing. I did BeaverWorks pretty much like that was it. So now engineering is what I'm doing. I love it, and I'm really glad I started it. At Purdue, I study aerospace engineering. In addition to my studies, I am on the rocketry team. I design the avionics system and the flight recording system for our rockets. And I'm also completing research this summer at Purdue in remote sensing satellite imagery. And that all that experience came from BeaverWorks. So it's a great program. Definitely stick with it. And yeah, good job, guys. Like, it's great. So back to you, Haley.
Great, thank you so much. David, do you want to go next?
Oh yeah, sure. I was originally born in Cambridge, Mass. So I was always kind of around the MIT infrastructure, but I think my story is a bit different than most people's. I mean, STEM, it wasn't called STEM when I was a kid, but at the end of the day, I didn't think I was going to be just in sciences. I didn't really know where I was going to be. I love history. Didn't like reading at the time, love reading now. So like I was just kind of always trying to figure out where I would kind of go. And I didn't think it was until high school that I kind of strapped in and was like, okay, let me be serious about school because college is right there. And I had an advisor who kind of spoke to me and was like, hey, what are you good at? She went through like my resume or my what do they call it, my transcript, and she was like, yeah, you're good at mostly science classes and math. And I was like, okay, so what does that translate to? I don't think I want to be a biologist, but like, what does that mean? And she was like, well, you could be an engineer, but also in this kind of field. And there's biomedical engineering, mechanical engineering, other things that were kind of interesting. Um, and I can go a bit more into my personal journey after. I think that's one of the questions as well. But to me, engineering kind of checked the box. I was like, okay, let's go look into engineering stuff. So I went into college, was studying biomedical engineering. It was very cool. It also overlapped really well with mechanical engineering, so I double majored with mechanical engineering. I was like, okay, this is great. Didn't know I was gonna do it after that, and then had a friend whose mother came up to me and was like, "You're gonna be a PhD." I was like, "I don't know what that means." She's like, "You're gonna go back to school." I was like, "No, I'm not." And she kind of just talked me into it, but like not in like a coercive way, but more in of like, here's what you're actually gonna do in life. Loved research, loved doing things applied, loved being the one who answered the question rather than someone telling me what the answer was. So ended up doing my PhD, and from there, one thing led to the other, and I'm now a program manager. So I'm not even really doing that much engineering, but it's engineering of a different sort, right? It's not so much of an applied system like we were taught in school, but it's more so not fixing, but helping people fix another problem, which always comes down to us tech people are very bad at seeing things on the outside. So now it's helping us kind of switch our heads and look left and right and see, hey, there's budgets, there's people, there's constraints. How do we get this all out? So my journey is more of like a board game. It's less so like a straight line, but a lot of jumping around and like, okay, this makes sense for me. This makes sense for me. I don't like that. Putting it all together and making my own little path.
Great. Thank you so much. Stephanie?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Stephanie. I'm a rising senior, so probably the same age as most of you guys. So I would say my journey to STEM is still like kind of just beginning. Growing up, as a kid, like everyone else, I always loved math and science classes like way better than history or English, and I was better at them too, which probably played a role in it. So I kind of always knew that I would be going into STEM, but STEM covers like so many different things from like chemistry to bio to like material science to electrical. I did Lego robotics, like first Lego League in elementary school. And it's like the simple one where you like build attachments for like the EV3, I think. And that's when I kind of fell in love with just like building things and experimenting. I think I was pretty creative as a child, and the thing about engineering is that like you have so much power to invent like whatever you want to solve, whether it's like tiny annoyances in your daily life or like actual global challenges facing the world right now. And last year I was lucky enough to attend the ASICS course where Mr. McGivern introduced me to like a whole new aspect of technology. I had really only done software in the past, and so that introduction to circuitry and breadboarding and chip design was just so incredibly cool. And by the end, I remember thinking like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I just want to get involved with tech, especially given the current growth of like AI and robotics. I just think that the next 10 years are going to look extremely different, and I want to be a part of it. So I recently came back from MNTSI, which is the Management and Tech Summer Institute hosted by Penn. Best 3 weeks of my life, by the way. And I'm feeling the same way I did after BWSI ended last year. You kind of realize that the world is so much bigger than you realize, and that there's like so many smart people out there, and that I want to work alongside these people to design new things, maybe invent a new product. I made friends who have like their own tech startups and clear vision for what they want to do in the future. And so I guess just like overall that sense of community and innovation and creativity is what pulled me into engineering, and it's what keeps me excited about where this journey is headed.
Great. Thank you so much. And then Alistair?
Yeah, so I guess for me, my STEM journey, I had very little choice in the matter. I was always going to do STEM. My parents were very much so big proponents of medicine, and so both for my brother and I, we both were just kind of from a young age, we were told that we were going to do STEM. Um, and I think just kind of going from there, though, I definitely had to figure out a way to make that journey my own. And as as it's probably obvious, I ended up not going into medicine. I ended up choosing to do engineering instead. And that was just kind of a choice that I made from learning a little bit more about myself and my interests in high school. And then later on in college, where I, studied chemical engineering, and I just had eventually rounded out a lot of my, my interests a little bit better. So, that's kind of where my STEM journey began, just with my parents kind of making some decisions for me, but then me also learning how to make those decisions for myself. And I think I ended up eventually finding myself in research after having one research experience towards my junior year of college, in one research lab that I did, around environmental engineering. And I really, really enjoyed that time. And I just kept going into research labs after that. And then that eventually led me to Lincoln, where I am now.
Great, thank you so much. Alrighty, we'll move on to the individual questions. This one is for David. What inspired you to pursue a career in STEM? Reflecting on your career, what is one piece of advice that you wish you could give your younger self?
Okay, so that's a bit of a loaded question, right? So, kind of like Allister just said, I am first generation Haitian in America, right? And I think most first generation kids kind of hear the same thing, right? Your parents came to this country to give you a better life. And in that, they kind of signed you up for like a STEM pathway in life, right? You're going to be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer if you're off to that side, right? So my parents kind of looked at me like you're going to be the engineer, and I fought back because I at the time didn't want to take that much thing serious. um but over time, seeing what engineering was, because that's a thing, right? I grew up in inner city Cambridge. Yes, they have MIT. Yes, there's a bunch of other colleges in Boston that have a bunch of good engineering programs. In the inner city, engineering doesn't really just show up and teach you what it is, right? Someone has to show it to you. And I went to a charter school that had a professor who just graduated from Wentworth. I think he was like 23 at the time. So it's a 23-year-old teaching a 16-year-old me. So that was fun for him. But he had the chance to kind of explain to me, hey, I'm doing an engineering elective. Do you want to see what it is? I was like, yeah, of course, I'll sign up. I'll take a look at it. At this point, I'm already talking to my college advisor about what can I be studying in college. She also kind of pushed me in that direction. And I finally, for the first time, got to see what engineering was. And it's like looking at a page and everything starts to kind of make sense. Like, okay, I don't know why, but I understand this process. And I don't know why, but I understand this process. So it all kind of came together. And to my parents' amusement, they're like, "Well, see, we were right. You're going to be an engineer." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." But I mean, again, it's not the easiest thing to just get into, right? With programs like this, there's a bunch of different ways they show you guys how engineers apply to real life. And I understand engineering is a thing, but at that point, it was like, hey, engineers are people who build bridges, right? I didn't know engineers are people who built everything you see in a hospital, from the thing that goes inside somebody to the thing to the bed that they're laying in, right? I didn't know engineering was the development of what's in a TV, not just necessarily putting the TV together, right? So there's a bunch of different components that you learn about that I didn't know about. So engineering wasn't necessarily on my pathway, right? So I'm thankful for that. And I guess to wrap it up, I guess a piece of advice I would tell myself is you don't have to have it all figured out. I think a lot of times people seem to have a plan that's all put together in front of them, and those people sometimes do great and sometimes don't. People who don't have the plan in front of them sometimes do great, sometimes don't, right? The point is your mentality. How hard do you work? How much do you want something when you finally figure out what you do want, right? This world is so big, there's so many different opportunities. Trying to pigeonhole yourself to just one thing is not only pretty impossible, it's abnormal, right? Figure out a bunch of different things. You'll find passions. Kind of like what Stephanie said, you're gonna find something that annoys you in life and you're gonna try to fix it. If you can find a fix that works for you and works for 1,000 other people, you have a business. Now you just went from an engineer to a business owner, right? And a lot of people are like, well, I don't get how that makes sense. And unfortunately, a lot of engineers don't understand how business actually works either, and that's why I kind of went off and got my MBA. It's because I wanted to understand how to fix that problem as well, right? I want to understand how that can be fixed. So, engineering mindset doesn't only say you're going to be an engineer by trade. Engineering mindset means you go and fix problems of any sort anywhere you go. So, that's what I would tell myself is don't try to find one pathway that makes sense for you. You'll make your own pathway, and though it might be kind of bumpy because no one else has done it, once you smooth it out, everyone else will follow a path behind you.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is for Allister. What personal experiences have shaped your views on the importance of STEM fields?
Yeah, I guess so. One one experience that I think that I've had was I think all the way back in high school. I was doing some science camp that my parents actually helped me find, and I signed up for it. And I think just kind of like looking around and seeing that there were not a whole bunch of people who looked like me in that space definitely made me or encouraged me really to want to be in that space a little bit more. And I think just kind of also participating in that science camp, I saw a lot of like the really cool and interesting things that were being done in at for that specific camp, which is biology. But then later, as I went into college, I ended up seeing a lot more interesting work that was being done as well. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I did a whole bunch of research labs while I was in college, and I think learning a lot about material science and learning a lot about biochemical engineering, like all of those experiences really made me, encouraged me to keep going and continuing into STEM, because I found that there was a lot of really interesting work that was being done and I wanted to be a part of that. Um, so I think that was just kind of, that's for me been what's made me want to keep going, and also helped me see how important and vital some of this work is, really is, because a lot of the work that we do, in STEM can help a lot of people. It has the power to really change people's lives and be very transformative to the human experience. So I think it was a combination of like a lot of different, you know, steps and places and experiences all across, from high school to college to now, really, that have really helped me see how important it is to be in STEM for people who look like me and people who, to be in STEM and just kind of to keep going in that, on this path.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question is for Stephanie. Reflecting on your experiences, what strategies have you found effective in navigating and overcoming obstacles in your STEM journey?
Yeah. I think that one of the most important things I've learned is definitely that like progress comes from both persistence and community. And what I mean by that is like, for example, when I started exploring hardware last year in ASICs, I was like completely new to even schematics. It was like a foreign language to me. I was super scared of falling behind and I made a ton of mistakes on the breadboard, and in the first week, I wasn't even sure if I like belonged in this class of people who were like so smart and just seemed to like get it. But I stuck with it. I watched so many videos, asked a lot of questions. I remember I was so scared to ask for extra resources like the first day after class, but Mr. McGivern encouraged me and said like something along the lines of like, thank you for being brave enough to ask for help and ask questions. And that experience taught me to not be afraid to be a beginner. And also being a girl in like a male dominated STEM space can be extremely intimidating. There are moments when you hesitate to speak up or share an idea because you're worried it'll get dismissed or that you'll be wrong and judged like even more harshly for it. And I've definitely felt that fear before, especially in like fast-paced group settings. But over time, like I started to realize that if I let that fear hold me back, then I'll miss out on chances to grow and contribute. So one strategy I've used is just forcing myself to speak up at least once in every meeting or session, no matter what. And most of the time, it goes better than I expect. And then last thing, I've also found that surrounding myself with a lot of like driven and passionate people keeps me motivated, especially when things get tough. Because when you're working with others who genuinely love what they do, it makes you also want to like, kind of like rise to their level as well. And I think that's why it's so easy to like feel intimidated in STEM in the first place, because there's always someone out there that's smarter than you, that's more experienced. But I've started kind of viewing it as like more like a strength of the field because it constantly pushes you to grow.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question is for Maggie. Think of a moment when self doubt crept in. What's one piece of advice or a mindset shift from a mentor, friend, or even a complete stranger that you now carry when leading or supporting others today?
What a question. So let's see. So I'm going to be real. Engineering is really difficult. There's academic stress because obviously what you're learning about is quite tricky. There's physical stress from long nights of coding. late nights. I had one last night coding till 3 a.m. It happens. Then there's like the social emotional stress of team dynamics, worried about being taken seriously, all that. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I felt like I belonged at Beaverworks until probably halfway through week 3, if then. And I was really stressed and I was really overwhelmed. And I was thinking, like, I don't belong here. Like, I haven't taken any AP classes. My high school is not fancy. I don't have really much STEM experience at all besides this. And I was really overwhelmed. So I went to my instructor and I talked to her and I said, hey, like, I'm not feeling so great. I don't know if engineering is for me. And she talked to me and she told me that I do belong. And honestly, just that itself was enough to get me to try again, like to take on some more resilience and to keep going. Shout out to Mary Dahl, she's awesome. But I think finding a mentor is really important, finding someone who believes in you. And that can give you the confidence to, in turn, believe in yourself and have the resilience to keep trying. Because even though it's really stressful and really intimidating, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like Beaverworks was really tough for me, but I'm really proud of myself for persisting. And I've been able to take that resilience that I learned into engineering spaces in college and beyond. And I'm very grateful for that and for the mentors at the program.
Thank you so much. My last question is for Allison. Leadership is a lifelong practice. What's one lesson you're still learning about being an effective leader, and how are you working on it?
Yeah, and I was thinking actually as Maggie was talking that I can kind of relate my answer, I think, to her comments as well. Because when we talk about leadership, right, like typically leadership, it's not like in a vacuum, right? It's with respect to a team of people. And so as a leader, right, I think it necessarily means that you have to be able to work with many different kinds of people, and to coach them along and to help them and support them, right? And so, I think to the extent that you can advance your technical skills, that's helpful, right, when you're in a leadership role because it gives you like credibility. But something that is, equally and I think arguably could be more important, right, are your people skills. And I think it really is a sort of a lifelong practice because you continue to meet new people. And while we have frameworks for like different personality types and different communication styles, and all of that is like super, super helpful. Every person in the end is a unique person, right? Or every pair of people who work together and might have some conflict, like is a unique conflict. And so I think that, at least in my experience in a leadership role, like one of the more interesting but also very difficult things is it's just how to talk to somebody who needs you, right? Whether that's something where the two of you might be having a disagreement of some sort, or they need help with like a sort of a teaming situation, right? The dynamics are kind of off and that kind of thing. And so for this group, like I think, at the moment, I'd say, your focus is really on kind of like finding kind of the branch of STEM that you might be the most interested in and that sort of thing. But if you are interested in leadership, then I'd say actually I like one recommendation that I always give is that if you have an opportunity to take, some training in like conflict resolution and how to work with a team, like it's actually very beneficial because again, they give you these sort of frameworks for like, even though everybody is unique and that kind of thing, like I think the tools that you can learn from those classes are helpful. Like it doesn't even have to be in a conflict. It's sort of like even in sort of normal situations, it helps you to have better communication with your teammates, both in your personal life as well as your sort of more professional life. And I think it is a critical kind of skill for leaders to know how to do. So that's it. Back to you, Haley.
Great, thank you so much. So that's all of our prepared questions. I think we're going to open it up to Q&A in the room.
Hello, this is the general question. What are some experiences that helped you go throughout your STEM career and either improved leadership or skills?
Anybody want to take that one?
I could jump in if no one has an answer. A lot of it just came down to, for me at least, in my personal experiencing, learning a lot of leadership came down to just being in situations that made you uncomfortable. Um, Usually, and I guess there's a trend that I hear in everyone talking here, right? We all felt uncomfortable at some point or the other, right? So funny because we all made it, which is great to hear. So at some point you will feel uncomfortable, and learning from that discomfort will help you teach people who come up behind you, right? So whether you think you're a leader or don't think you're a leader, someone will look to you for some level of leadership. So in remembering what you did and what you went through to get to where you got to, someone behind you will ask you questions and will see something in you that they need help from. So just always be willing to give back, sit down on these kind of panels, talk to other people, understand that people are struggling, or understand that sometimes people just don't know what they don't know. So give them patience, give them time, and slowly but surely your leadership qualities will always shine through, regardless if you think you're a leader or not.
Great, thank you so much. I see a whole bunch of questions online, so I think I'm gonna do online and then to the room if that's okay. I saw Brandon's hand first.
Yeah, hello. Thank you all so much for coming out today. I was just wondering, what was like one of the hardest moments that you had to go through like in your journeys, and like what kind of did you take from it, like learn?
Anybody wanna take that?
I can go. And it's also going to sound very related, I think, to what David was talking about before in terms of like discomfort and learning through it. But I mean, I would say, and this is sort of a later stage at than the stage that you guys are at. But I had a job interview that just went like really south. And sometimes this will happen, right? Where like I felt like I was qualified for this job, and I actually was invited to interview. And the expectation was that also because I had sort of a previous relationship with this company, right? Like I'd interned and everything, that it would all kind of go smoothly, and it was all almost like a formality. And then it totally wasn't. Like I felt really out of my element during that whole interview process, and the final like presentation piece that I went through was like it was very, very uncomfortable, and then I ended up not getting that job. And so it was like I think that out of like I think all the things that I experienced sort of along the way to getting like my job at Lincoln Lab, like that to me was very tough. I think similar to probably many of you, right? Like high achieving student, like used to kind of being able to go after something and get it, and it really kind of was like a confidence crusher for a period of time. But I'd say that like I think resilience is an important thing, right? The ability to kind of just bounce back and say like, well, that didn't go very well, but I was able to get my job at Lincoln. And I mean, like, I think looking back at it, right, like this was like a perfect place for me to be. I think I've been at this job for almost 13 years, and I'm actually very happy here. So keep us in mind for future employment to all of you. And so I think it worked out, and I think it was just one of those things where like you talk yourself through and kind of boost yourself back up after something like that, and just know that you're not alone, right? Like these kinds of things happen to I think everybody who's like out there kind of taking risks and challenging yourself, and it's okay every once in a while to have a something that didn't go the way that you wanted.
Great, thanks so much for sharing, Allison. Is there a question are there any questions in the room? Well, gonna try to go to the room virtual.
Hi, I'm Rohan, and kind of branching off that previous question that was given, I'm wondering if you guys, if you've ever been in like situations where you felt like you might have bitten off more than you can chew, or you're too tangled in something and you feel lost and kind of daunted by your work. What do you say to yourself or your team if you're working together to help pull each other out and feel like I want to keep going and I want to finish and achieve this? And what gives you that motivation?
Great question.
I can take this one.
Okay.
I've been in many situations like that, and yes, I totally relate to that question of being in a situation where you may have bit off more than you can chew and may have to deal with that in a team setting. Unfortunately, that's engineering. But the good thing is that the more you do it, the more you learn about how to do it. And in my first year engineering course, we had to do something like that. And they actually were teaching us team dynamic skills. Because a lot of times when you do engineering projects on teams, it's kind of just assumed that you know how to work with people. But really, being a teammate is something that you have to learn and practice, just like anything else. So I think learning those skills was really helpful for me. But for biting off more than you can chew, like it happens. And sometimes like you feel like you're sinking in a team situation and you feel like there's nothing you can do to get out of it. And I think in those moments, it's really important that instead of getting defensive, instead of leaning back and not knowing what to do, it's really important to lean on your team members. It's important to talk things out. I've had times on teams when this kind of thing has happened, and honestly, the best thing you can do, everyone puts away their laptop, everyone puts away what they're working on. You sit down as a group, get out a whiteboard, get out some dry erase markers, and you just write down everything. Write down what's working, write down what's not working, write down what you need to do, write down all the crazy ideas that come into your head, and just cover that whiteboard with your current situation. And I promise, if not fix your problems, that will at least illuminate what your problems are. And sometimes that can be like the first step to getting back on track. Just halt what you're doing, whiteboard out what your problems are, and that's the best piece of advice I could give.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we're getting online. Robert?
Hey, thank you all so much for coming out here. My question was, has there been anybody in your STEM journey that has been like a significant mentor to you? And is there any advice from them that you continue to apply today?
I can take this one. I would say there isn't a like specific one person. I've met so many amazing like instructors and teachers throughout my life that have kind of like guided my journey. Definitely, as from last year, Mr. McGivern from A6, if he's here, hello. He kind of taught me, as I said, like I was really struggling that first week. I felt like I didn't belong with all these like other smart people who had had like a lot of breadboarding and other experiences. He was kind of his like just encouragement to ask questions, to go research outside of class, made me like more interested first in the subject, and also second, just gave me the like confidence to start learning other skills. I just basically went from not knowing the symbols on a schematic and being unfamiliar with breadboarding to like programming in Verilog. I pushed myself like harder than ever. I remember that first week I would call with like my other friends in the class. We would stay up late just like researching, sharing like resources with each other. And that month I kind of like engaged in like the most amount of research I like ever done, just like additional study sessions after hours with like TAs, reaching out to other classmates. Of course everyone is super duper nice and they would be willing to explain stuff to me, and as a result I was able to eventually like lead my teammates together, and honestly just like learn so much. Like that was just my first like hands-on experience of learning so much. And yeah, I think as long as you have a mentor, specifically from my camp, like I was just at, my engineering teacher, his name is Sid Deliwala, super supportive of anything, always willing to help out. And I think just having that kind of person in your life is super duper important, especially when you're just starting out.
Great, thank you so much. Question from the room?
Hi, thank you guys so much for coming to speak to us today. My question was directed towards David. You said you got your MBA in addition to your STEM degree. So how has learning more about a non-STEM area kind of enhanced your view towards, or your perspective on STEM and how you can make an impact with it?
Great question. Snobbily, I realized that STEM is much harder than a lot of other things, at least if you understand the math and if you have some kind of programmatic background. That they're trying to introduce a lot of that in like MBA programs. So it does help to know that, right? When they brought up things like linear regression, things that I don't necessarily expect anyone to know unless they got really into machine learning, it's funny because then you're like, oh, you guys are doing this too, but you realize how they can apply things that someone told you is just for like engineering and programming, and no, it applies to absolutely everything, right? You can use that in trying to figure out parts about the stock market. You can use that in figuring out, how well will this business do this next couple of years, right? So it was very interesting to realize that STEM, or at least from what it seems like for me, STEM kind of influences or touches absolutely everything. They are not just completely different things, right? So the reason I went off to get my MBA, like I said, is to solve problems on different scales. But the biggest thing was I did a business plan competition when I was in grad school, and we got all the way to the New York State competition. So it was thousands of people from college all the way up to 60, 70 year olds who have a bunch of different experiences, and my team got to the second round up and failed at that point. And when I talked to a businessman about why it failed, he said, you asked for too little money. And I was like, what does that mean? I was like, he said, you asked for $10,000. I said, yeah, $10,000 would build out the device I wanted, pay people for 6 months, and be able to get it off the ground. He's like, no. He's like, in business, if you need 10,000, you ask for 100 to 1 million, because you have to multiply things by a certain factor to figure out how you're going to have this going for multiple years and make it more lucrative to people. Because what I heard was, all you need is $10,000. After that, I don't need you anymore. I was like, oh, okay. So, learning things like in and out of how do engineers even, like, why do we get paid by companies a certain amount of money? Why are we even hired at MIT Lincoln Lab? Things of that nature. In figuring out that, you have to figure out, okay, there's a business, there's a need, here's the cost, here's how much they can supply. It's not just about how long to run this year. No, you have to think about the next couple of years when you bring in money for this year. So just so much things going into that, to me, just look like an engineering problem. It's like, how do I put this puzzle together, and how do I take this puzzle apart and understand the ins and outs? So to me, they work together. I use both degrees or both trains of thought in what I do now as a program manager. So I like it a lot. So I hope that answered your question.
That's great. Thank you so much. Alrighty, our next question online is from Surya. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly.
That's good. Hi, thank all of you so much for your valuable insight on leadership and also choosing our future career. As a leader, what are your recommendations for fostering an environment of growth, synergy, and open-minded collaboration in the workplace or the group? What specific actions do you recommend?
I can take that one. I mean, I think it's just what you said, right? Like, if you want a team or a workplace where things feel open, like, you gotta leave it open. Like, it's it's sort of like, I think there can be a tendency when we ourselves are perfectionists and we want things to be a certain way, to, like, as a leader, also try to, like, be in perfect control of the situation, right? Like, you have an idea of how you want something to execute, and it's got to be like that way, or like, or you can't, you can't stand it, kind of a thing, right? But I do think, like, part of leadership is letting go of your own kind of, like, I need it to happen a certain way. Right. And so I think for us at Lincoln Lab, when we coach our new leaders and that kind of thing, like, part of it is to help them realize that, like your way is valid, but it's not the only way, right? And so if somebody else, like, or the team as a whole, like, they come up with their own way to solve the problem, and, like, it's just as good. It's not, it's not a bad thing, right? It's just different from your own way. And I think you do want to kind of handhold where they need handholding, right? Like, sometimes people ask for your help, and you should definitely give it. Like, if they seem like they're struggling, right? Like, you wanna support them. But if they're there, like, kind of innovating on their own and that sort of thing, I think it is important to kind of, like, step back and look at the good work that they're doing, and just make sure that they feel like, they can come to you if they have questions and that sort of thing. But to, like, yeah, give them a lot of freedom to sort of, address the problem themselves.
Great. Thank you so much. Question from the room.
Hi, thank you so much for talking to us today. A lot of people who come talk to us in these seminars have a PhD, and they seem to be doing a lot of really great research. But I'm wondering, do you think a PhD is necessary in order to be able to do the research and have the job that you want in the future?
I guess I'll jump into this, and maybe Allison, you can add to it after. A PhD definitely opens a lot of doors. It definitely puts you at research's, like, front door, because to get your PhD, you have to do some level of independent research for X amount of time, depends on your school and your advisor. But no, you don't need a PhD. I think there's, like, I think there's a misconception behind what a PhD does and what it offers and all these other things, right? I think a PhD is great, like I said, and I have one, but a PhD can also push you in only one direction, sometimes keep you in one place alone, right? Like you become, as a PhD, people look at you like you're an expert in something, right? So when you're expert in something, they kind of discount that from other things, right? So yes, I have my PhD in bioengineering, but I also have a degree in mechanical engineering. I also have an MBA. I also program. But if I was to put on an application, what do you want to do? People would look at bioengineering first, right? So yes, I think a PhD is great to have, and I do think it opens a lot of doorways for you. But no, you can get into research as an undergrad. You can get into research as just a master's student. You can get into research at any one of your companies that you decide to apply to, because most companies that are doing cutting edge engineering have a research department, and they will have people of all different educational backgrounds running through research because yes, a PhD does sometimes tell people like you're an expert, but there's plenty of people who do great things without it. So no, you don't have to get one. It is free for now. I don't know how long that's going to last, and they do pay you to some extent to get it, but that might not last forever. So it's up to you to kind of weigh that out.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, could I also add on? Yeah, I just wanted to say like a PhD is often actually, it can be quite difficult. Like not just sort of in your normal academic way, but I think emotionally, right? Like it's a period where you're kind of just like, like I think for a lot of folks, you're sort of like hanging on until you're able to defend your thesis. And there's a lot of like low points sprinkled in with some high points of when your research like goes really well, right? Like in general, I think this is often a PhD experience. And so not to discourage you from getting one, but just to make the point that like, it's the people who like are really passionate about their research, who are really interested kind of in that particular topic, who like I think have a good PhD experience in the end, right? Like I would say like I have no regrets about going through a PhD program, and I would recommend it to folks who are interested in that. But I think that if you are going after it because you feel like somehow it's necessary for you to have a successful career, I would not say that that is a good reason to do a PhD, because again, it is hard to do, and you're going to invest like probably at least 4 to 5 years of your time doing it. And so I think I think it is not the only path. Anyway, so I just wanted to make that point.
Great, thank you so much. Also, Allister, I know that you're off camera, but definitely feel free to jump in if you have an answer to these questions. Next, we're going to take a question from online. Alex?
Thank you. I had a question kind of building off of a previous question of, do you have any advice for leading your peers and making that culture kind of click also?
I could take this one. This is kind of a short answer, so if someone else wants to add on too, go ahead. But being on teams as a peer, I think one of the most important things is to have humility. A lot of times people are really trying to be the smartest person in the room. And a lot of times it gets said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. It's important to learn from others. So I think it's just important to not pretend you're the smartest person, just like actively try to like see what other people are doing. And if you do that, then other people will follow, and the whole environment will become more open and a more positive working environment for everybody.
I also want to kind of add on to that because at my program we had like a final team project. There were like 15 teams overall, and a lot of my friends had issues with their teams, just like working in a team in general. And our group also had some issues, but I think the most important thing is like you just want to like listen. I think people kind of undervalue the importance of listening in a team because like at the end of the day, everyone just wants to talk about their self and they want like their ideas to come through. Whether it's like for like the final project or just like how the team should be in general. So I think just like really listening and really considering and really like I think another important thing is to have like a shared goal for the team. I feel like some teams that I was aware of, they had different values, like different end goals, and I think they didn't communicate that clearly. So when it came to finally like build the product and do all that, it didn't translate well across the group. But yeah, I think just like listening and being very open-minded to other people's unique and creative ideas is pretty important.
Great, thank you so much. We have about 4 minutes left, so we are going to take just a couple more questions. Sadana, you want to go next?
Yeah,
Hello.
sure. Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm not interrupting anything.
You're good
but thank
online,
you.
yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
Oh,
So thank you.
You can go online, yeah, and then we'll take one more in person, so you're good.
Okay. Thank you so much for the intros. I found them really interesting, but I was wondering, many of your projects cross into like multiple fields, so like environment and data or transportation and safety. And I was wondering, how important is it to be like a generalist over like a specialist or vice versa?
It's a great question.
To me, the answer is it's very important to, even if you are a specialist, I mean, there's a place for everybody, right? So a specialist will figure out something that might help in their niche area, but a generalist might come and figure out that the answer can kind of go to a lot of things, right? The internet was built for a specific reason for the government. Somebody else saw the use of the internet for what we use it for nowadays, right? So a specialist is very important, a generalist is also very important. So that does not answer your question as much, but I guess what I would say to you is they're both equally important and they both work within the same place. There's no such thing as a vacuum in anything that you do when it comes to any major research. You will, if you all do research, you will sign up for a lab, right? You will be under an advisor or a professor of some sort. That person is specializing in a specific thing within a field. You could take what you've learned from that and generalize it to a lot, right? How do you become a leader based on this? How do you actually do research? What's the research process? How do you write a paper if you end up writing a paper? Things of that nature generalize really well. Maybe you're only learning about why the color purple is only purple at 2 to 3 p.m. on a Friday. It might be that specialized, but you might take that idea and understand how to form a concept for another thing that's more generalized. So in my opinion, both are very important. And I think everyone probably has some kind of opinion of the same sort.
Great answer. Alrighty, we'll take our final question, and that'll be from the room.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. This is a question for Allison, but any other panelists, if you have a very good answer, you guys can also. No, it doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be good. Any answer you can find. Okay. I'm here to ask for advice, and this is kind of awkward because someone already did. But I think everyone in this room knows that failure is the mother of success, and yeah, we've heard that like 1,000 times. But like, okay, you all have very unique experiences. So I would like to ask Allison, what is an unorthodox advice on in leadership or in your general STEM journey that you would give to us BWSI students today?
Okay, in general, I don't know that I have very unorthodox thoughts. And so if anybody else would like to jump in while I'm thinking about that, please feel free. But I will also try to come up with if not unorthodox, at least something that I would highly advise. Let me see. Yeah. So my thought on like just failure in general, right, is that like while it's true, I think that especially when you're still in high school and you may or may not have actually experienced sort of like a crushing failure yet, right? And so it becomes something that people say, right? That like, the success a failure is the mother of success. And I do think this is one of those things where like, as you go through your journey, I think you will just find out for yourself what it is that people are like, and not only sort of understand it kind of like at a surface level, but really internalize that like it actually is true. And I would say that in my own experience, it is the times when I felt the most uncomfortable, and also, in a way like sort of failed the most, arguably, right? That I actually came out of it like having learned the most. And that could be either like on a technical topic or even just sort of on a sort of more personal kind of level, right? Like the times when I felt really kind of down about something, right? But managed to like, it could take years, right? To like kind of crawl out of something. But like once I did, right? I felt like it did change me as a person, and it helped me to then be able to kind of like, you know, if a friend was going through a similar thing or whatnot, like have somewhat more valuable things to say. And so I think in terms of like this just sort of learning how to deal with the failure, I would say like, you know, it will happen naturally, and it's not something that you have to like seek out or like rush necessarily. It's just that like, you know, when it happens, when you're disappointed about something, I think it's important to just like, again, keep in mind, like you're not alone, like it's a natural part of the process. And to actually feel that like in every challenge, there's a good opportunity. So I would say that, but I invite any other panelists to also chime in if there are more unorthodox things to say.
I actually want to pile on to Allison here for in terms of unorthodox things to do is take an improv class. I think it is wild to have to think on your feet. It is wild to think about the approach to improv, which is yes and. Especially when working with teams, because you're not trying to contradict somebody and say no, but one of the tenets of improv is saying yes and, which works really well with teams as well. So I'm going to turn it over to
Sigrid. Thank you, Joel, for adding on. At this time, we're going to invite up our remote sensing disaster response students to present the t-shirt. If you guys could unmute yourselves, that'd be great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany, and I'm currently in the remote sensing course. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your STEM journeys with us. And it was really encouraging to hear that failure is something everyone goes through and that you were able to overcome these challenges by continuing to challenge yourselves. So, oh yeah, and then 10 can go.
Tenna, can you unmute yourself? No. All right, well, Tiffany, do you want to hold up the shirt?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So as a thank you, we want to present you with this Beaverworks t-shirt.
All right, thank you. Quiet in the room. I'm going to pass it back to Haley to do a closing.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists for your openness and wisdom, and to our audience for listening so thoughtfully. These stories remind us that STEM isn't about technology, it's about resilience, leadership, and community. We hope you leave today energized and empowered to pursue your own path and support others along the way. Keep asking questions, like all of those good questions that everybody asks the panelists. Stay curious, and don't be afraid to start something bold. Your future self will thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you guys so much. We don't have any announcements, so virtual classes can sign off for the day. And then we'll just dismiss by course.